It's the attachment of the infatuation or resentment to money. That's why Warren Buffett says, until you can manage your emotions, don't expect to manage your money. Today is about economics or finance. I'm going to call it mind over money, but it's basically breaking free from the financial stress that many people are facing and living a more abundant, life, unlocking the abundance that you can have in life. So if you have something to write with and write on, that would be fantastic. First thing I want to say is there's two primary distresses relating to money. So if you're going to write these down. The perception or fear of loss of that which you seek. The perception of loss of money that you're seeking. That's one. The other one is the perception of gain of that which you're trying to avoid. So let's give an example of what that might be. If you're seeking new clients to do transactions in sustainable fair exchange, where you get remunerated for some service you provide, or product that you provide, or some idea that you provide if you consult or coach, and you fear the loss of those clients, then you are fearing the loss of that which you seek. And that's distressful. If you are perceiving bills coming in that you're trying to avoid, or difficult clients that don't pay and you don't want to deal with them, or people that distract you or interfere with you earning the income, that's also distressful. There's two basic forms of distress: the perception of loss of that which you seek, the perception of gain of that which you're trying to avoid. All distress falls into those two categories, including financial stress. Now, those financial stresses are, you might say, mitigated or calmed down or governed if you're more neutral in your perceptions. For instance, if you're infatuated with somebody, highly infatuated, you're going to fear their loss. And you're going to be highly stressed if they were to leave. If you're highly resentful, you're going to fear their gain. You're afraid of them coming close. If you're neutral and you're not infatuated or resentful, then they can come or go with more resilience and adaptability. Distress is the inability to adapt to a changing environment. The world's constantly changing. If you can't adapt to it, you got distress. Financial distress is the inability to adapt to a changing environment and the perception of loss of that which you seek and the perception of gain of that which you're trying to avoid. So the more infatuated you are with getting the money, the more resentful you are of losing the money or not getting the money or having bills or taking money away, having money come in or having money go out, those two fears. If you're highly polarized, you're more distressed and you're more distracted, because anything you infatuate with and seek occupies space and time in your mind. We've all been infatuated and couldn't even sleep at night because we're so infatuated. And we've also been so resentful at night that we couldn't sleep because we're distracted. So anytime you polarize your perceptions and become highly infatuated or highly resentful to the gain or loss of money, it runs your life extrinsically, and the circumstances and the events in your life are running you, and you're highly distressed. When you are highly polarized and add valency or emotional charge to these things, positively or negatively, the subcortical area of the brain called the amygdala, which is assigning valency to your memories and your subconscious mind, it runs you, and it then therefore tends to polarize your perceptions further. More subjective bias and distortions on how happy you'll be if you get it and how sad you'll be if you don't. The more polarized you are, the more amygdala driven you are, the more survival emotional you are, the more you accentuate the distress levels. But if you are more objective, more neutral, more balanced in your perception, you'll be less distressed about the gain and loss of money. You'll be more strategic in your communication and in your transactions of service. Also, when you are infatuated with somebody, you'll sacrifice for them. If you're resentful to somebody, you'll sacrifice them for you, both of which are non-sustainable transactional states. you know, I rarely do a presentation without talking about values because everything that goes on in human behavior relates to it. You have a set of priorities in life, a set of values in life. Whatever's highest on that list of priorities, the highest value is where you're most objective, most neutral, most balanced. And whatever's lower on your value list is where you're more subjective, more amygdala driven, because you're not fulfilled there in that. Anytime you're doing something that's really high in your value, you grow your self-worth. You get your blood glucose and oxygen going into the forebrain. Your forebrain, your orbital medial prefrontal cortex area, is the governing center to govern the emotional swings and to neutralize the subjective biases of extremes and bring them back into more of a balanced objective state. So if you're filling your day with high priority actions that inspire you, that are being remunerated from serving people in sustainable fair exchange manners, you will maximize your financial income, and the most stable you'll be with it, and whoever has the most stability with money gets more money. Warren Buffett has a nice few sayings. If you look through some of his videos and read some of his books, you'll see. He says that money circulates through the economy from those who have the least order to those that have the most order with their financial house and their money management. They go from those who value it least to those who value it most. They go where you have the least amount of certainty to where you have the most amount of certainty. Least amount of emotional stability to the most amount of stability. So anytime you're living by your highest values and doing something that's really meaningful to you, that's something that inspires you spontaneously, something you can't wait to go and do of service to people, and where you're willing to endure challenges and whatever the pains and pleasures in the pursuit of something purposeful and meaningful, when you're actually pursuing solving problems for people, that you love doing that because it's meaningful and it helps you bring fulfillment in your life, the executive center governs the amygdala and calms down the extremes of subjective bias, which polarize the mind, which makes you more distressful. But if you follow your highest priority things, it calms all that down and reduces the distress. It increases the probability of you communicating more objectively and not trying to get something for nothing in a narcissistic mode or give away something for nothing in an altruistic mode. Both of those personas, those false identities, those elevated or depressed self-esteem perceptions are all amygdala based. They're all emotional based. So if you infatuate with somebody, you'll minimize yourself and sacrifice for them. You won't end up keeping the money, and you won't feel worthy of it. And if you go around and put people down and resent them and exaggerate yourself, a false persona, you'll narcissistically try to get them to give you something for nothing. None of those are sustainable. Trying to get something or give something for nothing is non-sustainable. So the second we live by priority, the more we're objective, the more we're spontaneously inspired to live, to fulfill and serve people, doing something we love, which was fulfilling us, so it's a fair exchange, and doing it in a way where we're in equanimity, not exaggerating or minimizing ourselves or minimizing and exaggerating them, the more we have access to sustainable fair exchange where you and the individual customer wants to do business and you want to get more referrals. There's an abundance there. There's no lack there. We only have a perception of gain and loss or lack, something missing when we have imbalanced perspectives. Claude Shannon, in his studies on information theory, described the tendency to go from order to disorder. And disorder means missing information, and order means full information. In other words, when you're able to see things objectively and truthfully and see things in a fair exchange manner, and you have an objective view, you understand the customer's views, you understand your own views, and you try to find a win-win relationship, which allows you to have more sustainable business transactions. And you have more abundance because there's more people that are going to want to refer to you because they feel they can trust you. Their oxytocin and their vasopressin hormones, when they're doing business with you, go up, and they believe in you and they want to refer to you. You get more possible business. But the second you're not living by priority, trying to sell something you don't believe in, or trying to exaggerate yourself and get something for nothing, or minimize yourself and sacrifice, almost everybody's probably had a transaction with somebody they put on a pedestal, some celebrity or one they were doing business with. They didn't want to lose the business, so they sacrificed the profits and gave a discount. Or Maybe they narcissistically thought, I don't need this client and I'm just going to gouge them. And they've gone to the extreme and narcissistically expected something for nothing. Those don't sustain. Nobody wants to, you're not going to build a brand that way. You're going to build a brand with sustainable, fair exchange when you have a willingness to have a win-win relationship with them. So that occurs more probably when you're living by priority, which means in your business, if you're delegating things that are not inspiring to people who are inspired to do it, and they're engaged and you're both doing high value actions, your business goes up in value. And there's never a lack of money to people who care about serving people. There's always something out in the world that people need. And caring enough about human beings to go out and find out what that is what brings the abundance. Caring enough about it to find out what they really need is not narcissistically assuming and presuming you know what they need, or altruistically sacrificing what you need for what they need, but actually finding out what inspires you that would be fulfilling to other people, that inspires you with your skill and your competency to go out and deliver. Whatever's highest on your values, where your highest, you might say, competitive advantage advantage and opportunity is. Ricardo and his work on competitive advantage and comparative, opportunities show very well that when you find the thing that you have the greatest resource about and exchange that with somebody else that's doing the same, you both have the best transactions. Countries do that, cities do that, people do that. Your greatest asset is when you're living congruently, authentically, according to what you value most. That's why in the Breakthrough Experience, the program I teach pretty well every week or every 2 weeks, I am showing people how to, one, identify what their hierarchy of values are. If you have not gone onto my website, drdemartini.com, and done the value determination process, do it. Take the time to do it. It's 30 minutes of your time. It's free. It's complimentary. It's private. Take the time to do it. Do it again a week from now, because you'll lie to yourself the first time, probably. You'll probably write down what you want it to be as a value structure, but answer the questions really integrally, be reflective, and really take the moment to answer the questions that are on that questionnaire. Do it again a week from now, do it again a month from now, do it again 3 months from now, and do it every 3 months to keep current with what your values, because they evolve as you go through life. And then make sure that you're prioritizing your daily actions to fulfill what's most meaningful to you, and doing something that contributes and serves other people, so you stay in your executive center, so you stay more objective, so you're more resilient and less vulnerable to the distresses of gains and losses, or the perception of loss of that which you seek, or perception of gain of that which you're trying to avoid, and allows you to stay out of the amygdala, which is an emergency survival mentality instead of a thrival mentality. And you can live more abundantly from that perspective, with more fair exchange, more referrals, more opportunities in that mode. That's why in the Breakthrough Experience, I have people go through and identify what their highest value is, show them how to prioritize their life and live accordingly, and then I give them the Demartini method. The Demartini method is a science on how to ask questions to be conscious of what's unconscious. Because when you're infatuous, some of you're conscious of the upside, you're unconscious of the downsides. Therefore, you're going to fear their loss. If you're resentful to somebody, you're going to be conscious of the downsides, unconscious of the upsides, you're going to fear their gain. If you're infatuated with money or resentful to money, you won't manage money. It will run you. In the great book by Hubert L. Bancroft, The Book of Wealth, which is a classic, which I have access to and bought a copy of. It's only 400 copies ever printed originally. In that book, it talks about 3 things that were common to extremely wealthy people. One, they felt that they had by divine providence and human sovereignty, a desire to serve vast numbers of people, a calling, a feeling like it's destined to serve vast numbers of people. They also felt that they had a mission to go and raise and elevate the standards of people in humanity. And they also not to be attached, pleasure or pain, infatuation, resentment to money, not seeing it as evil or good, seeing it as simply a measuring device of the contribution you're making in sustainable, fair exchange with human beings on the planet, not to attach to it. It's the attachment of the infatuation or resentment to money. That's why Warren Buffett says, until you can manage your emotions, don't expect to manage your money. If you're not able to manage your emotions, you're going to be highly distressed. You're going to not have the abundant mindset. You're going to live in survival. And that's why in the Breakthrough Experience, I introduced the Demartini method on how to dissolve all the emotional, subconsciously stored baggage associated with money or different areas of your life, not just money, relationships, social issues. Because as long as you infatuate, resent, they are going to run you. You're not going to be in command. If you want to be master of your fate and captain of your ship and be a master of your destiny, not a victim of your history, and not be distracted by emotions and be trapped where you devalue yourself and feel unworthy of having abundance, then prioritize your life. That's why I help people come to the breakthrough experience, to show them how to prioritize it and to dissolve the emotional baggage that distract people from being present. If you're purposeful, which is your highest value, if you're present, which you're not wobbling and waffling around with emotions, you're productive, you're prioritized, and you're basically empowered by your life, then you're going to have more abundance in your life than you are if you're sitting there in vicissitudes of emotions all the time and falsely attributing the things on the outside with blame and credit to things. People that blame reasons why they're not abundant, and people then give credit to people outside them that think they're going to make them abundant, they're not going to be as abundant as the people who are living congruently by who they are authentically, not giving credit or blames on the outside, but taking accountabilities on the inside. You want to be able to bring your mind into accountable balance sheet where you can see both sides of yourself, because whatever you infatuate with, you're basically disowning in yourself. Whenever you're resentful, you're disowning yourself. Being accountable is to bring those and have reflective awareness and realize you have everything you see out there, so you're no longer distracted by them. You're not infatuated or resentful. That's why in the breakthrough experience, I show you where you actually already have what you're looking for. It's in a form you're not honoring. That's a gold mine when you get that, to realize that nothing's missing in your life. Abundant is the realization that nothing's missing. And lack is the perception that there's something missing. So when Claude Shannon talks about missing information, it's because we're unconscious of things. In the breakthrough experience, I help people become fully conscious, sometimes called mindful, sometimes called super conscious or cosmic conscious or spiritual conscious, whatever title you want to give it. I want people to realize that there is an abundance sitting in their life, that they can empower all areas of their life, particularly the financial area, which is a universal value system, and that many times their finances are stored in other areas and they're not honoring. They may have some of their wealth in intellectual property. They may have wealth and sometimes in a business that they haven't sold yet, or products they haven't sold, ideas in their head. They may have in their beauty or their attractiveness. Sometimes people will exchange finances for that, or their spiritual awareness, or possibly their social contacts. There's not a lack in your life. In the breakthrough experience, I show people how to discover what they think is missing, where it is, and the form it is, so they're not giving power to other people. They're giving power back to themselves, contributing to other people in a sustainable, fair exchange, objectively by their highest values, because the forebrain is where objectivity is. And if you're not living with foresight and planning your life by design, you're going to be living by hindsight, living by duty. And you're going to be basically minimizing yourself to people or exaggerating yourself to people and judging yourself with gossip, which is a symptom of a non-engaged, non-inspired, non-prioritized, non-focused leader. So if you want to go and grow your leadership, if you want to go and empower your life, you want to go and build more abundance in your life, you want to have a master of your mind and master of your life, and basically have an integrated mind and instead of a disintegrated mind, come to the breakthrough experience. I'm absolutely certain that program has transformed thousands and thousands of people's lives all over the world. And I know it can do the same for you. I know it can help you have a trajectory of where there's more abundance in your life. I know it can help you have more stability. I know it can help you have less distress and more eustress, which is a wellness promoting vitality, where you get up in the morning and you can't wait to go out and be of service, tackling challenges. See, people that are inspired by what they do look for challenge to solve. People that are uninspired are trying to avoid challenges and look for an easy path, an immediate gratifying kind of path, a short-term thinking. The people that are doing what they love and doing something that's inspiring and living by their highest values think long-term. They start to focus. And what is wealth building but deferred gratification? It's taking and expanding your space and time horizons. In the breakthrough experience, I show you how to expand the space and time horizons, to look from a celestial view, looking down on the earth, instead of a terrestrial view, looking out from the earth. I want you to look down and realize, this world, what do I want to accomplish on world today? Instead of, well, the world's on top of me, I want you to be on top of the world and look down and realize, hey, this whole world is mine. And I've said for years that the universe is my playground, the world is my home, every country is a room in the house, every city is a platform to share my heart and soul. and I hold it in my mind and spin the world in my hands and go, what do I want to do in this, what part of the world today? You have the power to have an abundance of whole globe. With the internet today and all the knowledge we have access today, there's absolutely no reason why you can't live an abundant life. So come to the Breakthrough Experience. Let me share with you. If you got something out of this 30 minutes, come there, because I'm going to take 25 or 26 hours and I'm going to share the most amazing information that's going to help you have mastery over your life. I've been dedicated for 50 years on self-mastery to help people do something extraordinary with their life. I'm certain in the Breakthrough Experience, I can impart to you information that is proven to work with thousands of people. It can work for you. So if you would like to have a more abundant life, if you'd like to have mind over money and break free the financial distress and live more abundantly, come to the Breakthrough Experience. Let me spend 26 hours with you and kind of blow your mind on what you're capable of doing that you may not have honored in yourself. Anyway, thank you for joining me today for this little presentation. Look forward to seeing you next week. If you believe this will be of value to you, please pass the torch and let people know out there about our little podcast, little message, and make it to the Breakthrough Experience. I'm sure you're going to say thank you at the end. I've asked people at the end of the program every week, how many of you learned something this week and you could have gone your entire life and you would never have learned if you hadn't been here? Every hand goes up every week. So I'm absolutely certain you'll get something out of this experience. So come and join me at the Breakthrough Experience and let me help you live a more abundant life.